Hello, everyone, and welcome to the House of Portofino Black Tabletop. This week's discussion is what does it mean to follow and be followed? We're seeking perspectives from both the D types and the S types, and we're here to share a conversation, enjoy different perspectives, and altogether enter into a safe space for conversation and a shared interest in the BDSM lifestyle. So I hope you enjoy, and I can't wait to see you at the next one. What was the time in life when you realized you first liked being led, or you first liked leading? And that's an open question to anybody here, so I'm eager to hear your answers.
Are you gonna pass the
I'm a
baton?
pass the baton. Okay, all right, yes, okay, baton. I'm gonna be honest.
Mhm.
I did not like leading at first. I had a mom who is mentally disabled and a father who barely graduated high school, and he was always working. And my mom couldn't help like brothers and sisters with stuff. She would get sensory overloaded real quick. So I felt like a parent, even though I was not old enough to be one, of course. I was maybe like 5, 6,
Mhm.
and doing things like changing my sister's diaper or watching her. And then when I was like 9 or 10, I'd be like, okay, we got to do our chores so we can go wake them up so we can eat. My dad was very militia in that sense. Like, we couldn't ask for anything until we did chores first. And when you went to go knock on his door, because he kept his door closed, it would say, did you do chores before you bother me? And then he'd have a list of chores that we had to do. So I always got them up like, okay, we got to do our chores so we can get this done. I used to actually hate it as a kid.
Mhm.
I didn't like it. And as I got older, I think the ability to change someone's perception of self or their capabilities and lead in that way became rewarding and intriguing. But I wouldn't say that it didn't. I believe it happened because I had a little bit of a leadership as a child, forced leadership, but I think I had a little bit of leadership as a child. I realized I didn't like to necessarily be led because I'm a lesbian, quote unquote, now. I prefer masculine pronouns, but if we're technical, I'm technically classified as a lesbian, a masculine lesbian. And I attempted to be, quote unquote, straight. And I've had boyfriends before. And no offense to men in the chat, but I realized that I didn't like being led when I got into my first serious relationship with a guy. I don't feel like I let him lead, honestly. I
Mhm.
feel like I ran over him. I feel like I didn't respect anything he was saying. And it was also because I didn't necessarily, I think, feel safe enough. Like, being a leader is a very serious position to be in. And I didn't feel like I had a leader. Like, I was going to school. My brain is pretty expansive and extensive. So I was going to school, still maintaining a job, and this motherfucker couldn't even finish his GED. So I used to get upset about that. And
Mhm.
so I realized that I didn't like being led under the condition that I can't trust my leader. And as I mature, I realized that it's not that I don't like being led. It's just that it takes an immense amount of trust and structure, even at work, right? Like, my leader at work. I love her, but I don't necessarily like her leadership because we're always all over the place and there's no direction or guidance. And I often find myself taking charge of situations from my chief nurse, even though I'm an informal leader at work. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
That makes perfect sense. And somebody's icon light up. Cleo, were you about to say
Cleo.
something?
Oh, I like agreeing. That makes sense.
Yeah.
What part do you agree with specifically, though? Like, what resonates?
I think for like when you were saying that you realized the reasoning why you like to lead, because like initially you want to turn from it because you had to deal with that responsibility, like be younger, I kind of like drew a connection to what my answer would have been in that. So I was like,
What was your answer?
oh. I think for me, when I realized, So initially, I think when I first like started to learn about BDSM, and I was like classified as a submissive at some point in a previous relationship, I liked having like the guidance and being like under control and like the typical things that like you would think like coming in what you think BDSM is about, but that has since then changed. And I feel the reason why I like being led now is because I've discovered it in the middle of trying to unlearn all the things that made me feel like I was being like controlled, or things I thought I had control over. And the thing, like the reasoning previously I realized were all things that I had put around me to make me feel safe. Like, just give me just tell me what to do, give me my rules, I'll follow them, I'm really good at that, this is whatever, I'm good, I got it, I can do this type thing. But that led to a lot of, like I said, things made me feel safe, or like defensive mechanisms or survival things. I'm trying to just survive or manage a situation. And so somewhere within that journey, to have somebody in my life that like saw through that and not having to like ask me to be like, give me the keys, like made me really like, has made me realize like that kind of, I like being led that way, because now with it being done, there's this like care and clarity, and I can feel like my resistance and the barriers I had up for protection and the defensive things start to collapse. And I feel like I'm in a position to be led even more fully now, because I've been given like this permission to just let go, and I'm able to do so without feeling so lost in it. So for me, realizing like being led wasn't just about like the discovery of submission. It's come with like the healing aspects and finding the power in surrender, and learning to let someone just guide me, that it feels like I'm being rebuilt more so than like controlled or or like even broken. So that's when I realized that I truly like being led. Yes, that's all that's it.
Yes, and that was a beautiful answer, and I could see the connection between you and Sarah's answer, because they both mirror that having to have trust in this situation. When I think about this answer, it's like I had liked to be led, but I didn't trust to be led, so I usually defaulted to the aggressor in a lot of situations after, being hurt here or being hurt there, or finding difficult relationships where giving up control didn't feel safe, or following didn't feel mentally healthy, but I did it because I was trying to be there as someone I really wasn't. Does that make sense? So highlighting like you and Sarah's safety, that feeling safe in the leadership is a big thing.
Yeah, and I'm gonna do it as myself versus like the thing about contracts, like versus what a contract's telling me to do. Oh yeah, I agree with that. No, now I got to actually do it as me. Ooh, okay.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it's different. Thank you for letting me answer.
Oh yeah, you said something that was interesting, and I'm curious. Like,
Ooh.
I'm curious if anybody else has felt like a difference in following it and leading as themselves versus following or leading in a facade or like persona. Does that make sense? Oh, okay. Well, how does
Give
that
me an
make
example,
sense?
like what you mean. Like,
So,
give me an
like-
example. Like, give us an example.
Absolutely, Daddy. Thank you. So, like, in previous relationships, I played like a chameleon. You know what I mean? I never felt comfortable with myself. I didn't really have a lot of love for myself at a base level. So when I would find someone that seemed like they wanted to be around me, I would chameleon to whatever they were talking about. And then felt like I had to keep chameleon and keep faking the funk, or keep being okay with things I wasn't okay with, to maintain the relationship, because it was established in me not being myself. And so there is always this like imposter syndrome of one day they're going to find out and they're going to leave me because I really don't want to do this, but I want the company. I want to be around the people, so I'm going to follow their lead, even though these steps make me pigeon-toed, knock me, hunchback, twisted, like,
Sick.
yeah. I feel jacked up following, but I'm going to follow because I want this for whatever void or reason I was feeling. However, following now, loving myself and having and holding space for what fills my cup and being aware of it rather than just following to maintain where I'm going or who I'm following behind, that's such a different feeling, and I feel more confident in following rather than feeling like I'm being dragged to prison going along this path. Does that make sense now?
That makes sense.
Yes, and I do see ones in the chat. This is like a free form. If you hear a pause and you want to say something, please jump right in.
Yeah, I just put a 1 because I have difficulty doing that. I don't want to cut anybody off. But I understand the nature of the free flow. I just struggle with group conversation. I was just answering the first question that popped up. I have always been a leader since I was a child, especially in school, like with projects and stuff. I was a smart kid, so like when there was a group project, typically people like to befriend me because I was a smart one. So I always ended up leading. I'm always the one that organizes people, organizes things, organizes organizations. Like I'm always the one that the go-to for that, and I lead in that way. I used to do a lot of leadership like in like social groups, but I kind of backed down from those types of leadership and kind of being out like that because I just struggle with like the people-y side of leadership, I guess. Like I can like when there's like drama and things like that, I don't do well with navigating that as like a leader, I don't think. So I typically lead from behind lately when it comes to like leadership stuff. I did that with like the society a lot too. And like in the organization I'm part of, like the SL Greek stuff, I typically am a leader, and I'm usually talking to the leader and like helping her heavily on what they need to do or should do. But I'm not the one, like I'm not the face of it because I just struggle with that part. I like being a leader for the most part, especially if I'm confident and think I'm trying to lead. If I'm not so much. So it depends on my confidence in the area. In relationships though, I have tended to be the leader because the guys I dated were wet noodles, or like I can run over people, and it's very hard for me to submit to someone that's not really strong because I will test it. I will like run you over on purpose, see what you would do. And a lot of the times the people I used to date just kind of let me do whatever. And like I kind of like, if I could, then I would kind of situation in like my vanilla relationships. So there wasn't a vanilla situation where I was not the leader. Because even when I did try to let them lead, they would like disappoint me or forget or not do what they said they're gonna do. And that's a pet peeve of mine in a vanilla relationship. So I couldn't really trust them enough to let them lead the relationship. So I didn't follow a lot until I was in a BDSM relationship. In the serious one, not like the play ones and like Second Life or whatever. Because even like when I was like a quote unquote submissive with other people, like I still ran them over because I could. I don't know. I press buttons sometimes, but yeah. So if I can trust the person, like I think already been said, if I can trust the person and I want to lead, like I want to follow them too, because like, I mean, y'all know Master's amazing. So of course you want to follow, like that was not very hard for me to like, it was different steps, but like in a simple general sense, when I first met him, very much like dominant energy before even speaking. So that was like, oh, that's different, you know? I haven't met anybody like that. So that automatically put me on like the submissive like point of view or mindset, but that depends on the person's energy. And how they carry themselves and their knowledge, that they're smart, like the different layers. Does that make sense? But naturally, I kind of like always been in that leadership position, even when I was a kid in school and stuff like that. That's all.
Thank you. And yeah, you mentioned a couple of things, but I also see Sunshine wanted to talk. So I wrote some stuff down that I'm going to follow up on. But Sunshine, you can jump in when you're ready.
Thank you. So, I kind of had to be a leader for a good portion of my life when I was younger, just because of my mom going through extreme postpartum depression. So I realized that I love seeing the joy in people when I'm doing something of service. But when I had to be like the parent and help an adult at a young age, I realized, okay, so I can be strong. I can do this. But when I became older, I realized that I'm very much submissive in a lot of things. Although I have an attitude and I can be snappy and I have a very strong back, I love being in service and it makes me feel grounded. So I've always loved structure and rules, and I've always been very attuned to people's moods and changes so that I shift to help them stay at an even level. So it's still like a learning curve for me because I'm extremely new to being a submissive. I've never found a dominant that I felt comfortable enough to be vulnerable with to teach me. But I know the things that I want to learn and what makes me feel that that is my direction. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh, yeah. And for everyone, everything you're sharing is definitely beneficial and something that seems to be a general connection through everyone's comments is that sense of trust. So coming from someone who's following and someone who's leading, when do you begin to trust the journey you're on? Like, what in you is like, okay, I'm ready to follow, or I'm ready to lead? Do you remember when that switch flipped?
To definitely being a submissive and not like a leader in
Yes.
essence.
Yes, like wanting to follow rather than lead, because it seems like everybody so far has had some leadership thrust upon them, has been comfortable in leadership, has been raised in their family to be a leader, but some decide service is more befitting, some decide leadership is more befitting. What was the switch for you?
I think it was when I was in my very first real serious relationship, and he was 9 years older than me. And women are supposed to be more mature than men, but still, when there's that big of a gap, he had a very demanding job, and so I was in my first year of college, and just being of service to him, and it made me feel happy. He had long hours, and the simplest of things of making sure that he had a meal when he got home, or doing laundry, or realizing they were exhausted, so if they needed a massage, that brought me so much joy. So I realized I'm very much a wanting to be of service type of person, and in that he guided me a bit, not necessarily in a dominant role because that wasn't something that he was into, but just in that kind of grown structure. I do very well in structure, so that's when I noticed it.
For me, I think same thing with Sunshine. I tend to like to help people. Like even like when I was a kid, even though I was like a leader, my mom, like my family is Caribbean, Trinidad, so a lot of the women are really in service to their husbands. So I've watched that a lot through my mom. But in general, I've always liked being helpful to people. What kind of made me locked that away initially, and I'm thinking it's like a vanilla sense, or like when I was younger,
Mhm.
was that I have difficulty knowing what I'm taking advantage of because I also became a people pleaser and doing things I didn't want to do, but I want that person to like me. Or that kind of had difficulty with having boundaries through helping people and like being a service to other people a lot. And so it was hard for me to tell who I can trust. I wasn't being taken advantage of. So I kind of had to lock that away a little bit, especially in relationships. Because like I would date guys that were broke. And like, I'm not trying to brag at all, but I am very educated. I have 2 degrees, a license. And the guys I date would like really have a degree. Not saying that degrees are what makes you, but at the same time, there's a level of discipline that I respect in people who have degrees. So it's just like being able, like I had my own apartment, my own car. The guys that I dated like didn't have any of that. So I was like driving them around. Like, so I felt myself like, yeah, some girls be like, oh, I can fix him. Like I can help him, like that
Yep.
kind of thing. I tended to do that with almost every boyfriend that I had. Eek, that's gross. Anyway, but that was kind of like my trope, unfortunately. So I've always had like that service, like when I help people all the time. It's just that in my relationships, with the shenanigans with that, it created distrust and maybe kind of like put that away a little bit and kind of withhold how I am naturally, because I didn't want to be taken advantage of, because I'm kind of like an all or nothing person too. It's hard for me to find the middle of like helping a little bit, but not too much. Like I struggled with that. So that was kind of like, that switch was always on. It turned off over time until I kind of rediscovered like being a submissive. But even before I met Master, like I would play around with this. I like the idea of like being told what to do because I like the structure. Life is very overwhelming and unpredictable, and having someone be like your head and kind of structure your life was very appealing to me because I was often anxious, overwhelmed. So that was really appealing in general. But even with those guys, like I didn't really trust them like that. So I didn't really go anywhere. The flip, that switch, honestly, was just like when I met Master and I was like, oh, that's a different energy. It was just energy based, honestly. That's what made me like when I first met him, it was like, I feel like I should be kneeling. Like that was not even a thought to me, but that came up when I met him or whatever. So it wasn't really something that happened. It was energy with the BDSM thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But that's it.
That makes perfect sense. And it makes me smile a little bit because that closing off, like I'm sure we've all had multiple relationships, whether they're situationships, even friendships, family relationships that have that moment where you adjust or shift, or there's a situation that happens and so your reaction is to put up a wall or be like, ooh, okay, this is not a safe place to share these thoughts and these actions or these spaces. Let me block it off. And by the time you realize it, so much of you is blocked off. You don't even know what's what or what was influenced or who did what now where. So falling back to that, learning to trust the person that you want to follow in the future, or finding it in you to take a chance to build that trust. And sometimes from the gate, you want to be like, no, this feels familiar. I'm good with it. I don't want to go down that path. And Sambi, go right ahead.
Yes. I don't typically talk to people about my BDSM life or my past, but I feel comfortable. So, I don't know. I feel like my switch hit when I was really young. I had a really, really bad stepdad, really abusive. So I always took that parental guide, at least for my siblings, and that leadership to take care of them. My mom used to babysit a lot, so I used to help her babysit. There was a spring break that she babysat like 16 kids. Yeah. And
Wow.
and that's where I learned that I could be a leader, but also a guidant that makes sense. To make people feel secure and find what makes them happy. And that made me think like, what is that called? Is that being submissive? At that time, is that being submissive, people pleaser or leader? And I didn't find out until, I guess, later in high school, where helping people makes me happy. And I took it as a leader, like a parental guide, like I said. And that also ties into my BDSM life, where I guide my partner to, make them feel comfortable and to trust me, to take care of them and please them. Because I am very, very, like, how do I say it? Not the commonly known dominant, where I can pass limits and I want to test my partner if they are comfortable in doing so. I am a big sadist, but I would like to guide my partner into the things that they are comfortable with, and I can take a step back and limit myself to please them, if that makes sense. Keep them away from my
I feel like we're bonding.
And I don't know. Ever since I was a kid, it's just, I don't know if it was just a switch or I just naturally brought myself to that point. But to take care of my siblings, basically, they see me as a father figure, more than anything. If I don't know if other older siblings feel that same way. But I always took the steps to basically tame them, if that makes sense. Not in a bad way, but like to guide them and tame them to not do anything bad.
Absolutely. Always within safe, sane, and consensual practices. Yeah, SSC is a foundational principle. But that, so it seems like for certainly that those instances growing up of having to be like the third parent in this situation instilled those leadership principles, but once you got older and more aware of how they impacted you, you both found things that were appealing about the leadership that was forced upon you. And for some of these submissives that shared, including myself, there was always this sense of having to be the leader that created almost a longing for a space to be able to let someone else take the reins without feeling forced into being in front of everything all the time. Is that... I changed diapers here. Oh no. Is that an adequate statement for everyone? Like, does that kind of reflect what was shared so far?
I would say so.
Oh, excuse me.
Go ahead.
No, I missed the statement before you asked the question, Eunice.
Well, the question was like, for certain Sabi, it seems like the leadership that was forced upon them younger created like that base sense of leadership, and as they got older, aspects of being that leader started to appeal to them in the BDSM dynamic, where a lot of the submissives that shared also felt that pressure to be the leader, to run things, to be in the front, and as a result, there was a sense of comfort in finding a trusting environment to let go. And I was like, is that pretty accurate for everyone?
I never felt a pressure to lead.
Oh. understand.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got married really young, so but I think learning and research, like as I learned and researched BDSM, I guess like what the common term they used for what it seemed like I was more domestic discipline, more so than BDSM, because I was a wife by like 18, so I had my first kid when I was 20, so I was in these similar to Sunshine. He worked 15-hour days, so I was cooking and cleaning and taking care of a kid and hot meals when he got home and stuff like that, and then he'd be gone. I was on my own, so like, which I enjoyed. I enjoyed doing that, you know. So that's kind of where a lot of my relationships went, which is why like the BDSM kind of thing kind of was intriguing at first. I mean, it's not like at first, like it's not anymore, but that's kind of like, so now all my relationships have always been me being a caretaker, some shape, way of form. So, yeah, no pressure there.
I feel like for me, somewhat growing up, I had more leadership than I probably would have otherwise. And I say that because like y'all know like some of like my dad being sick like years ago, but when my dad has had illnesses my entire life. When I was 7, he had colon cancer. And then a couple of years later, he had primary sclerosing cholangitis, which is a liver disease, and it's only curable with a liver transplant. There were times where my dad, he was on a list for a transplant in 2 different places, in DC, which is where I live and where I'm from, and also Pittsburgh, which is about 4.5 hours away from here. So anytime they called thinking they had a liver for him in Pittsburgh, my parents were gone. They could be gone for, it depended. Like if he went there and they didn't have the liver, he might still be there if he was really sick. So there were times where like I didn't have my parents for like weeks, months at a time, like in elementary school. And like my grandma would come up from North Carolina and watch us for like a week. And then a cousin would come up, and then an aunt would come. So I still had like somebody there for me and my sister, but we would go like grocery shopping like as kids and, you know, do stuff like that we weren't used to doing. It was different, you know. So in some way I kind of was thrust into a leadership role early on. And then also some years ago, back in 2019, my dad got sick with lymphoma, and he went to a septic shock from the chemo. So my dad was in a coma for like 2 months, and he was in the hospital from August until December before he moved to 2 different rehabs. So I also was in a leadership position there because we were all distraught. The doctors all thought my dad was going to die. But my dad was in charge of so much stuff that we didn't have access to. Like my dad was one that did the mortgage payments and like all these different bills. A lot of like the companies, they won't even like give you the password. Even like to my mom, even though like, you know, she was married to him, she had to get like a power of attorney and different stuff like that. I had to go into a leadership position for my mom and my sister. I think me and my mom especially really became leaders in that situation. We were going to the hospital every single day. We'd get there, we kind of alternate. We'd go early in the morning because it's a teaching hospital, and we'd go for rounds to figure out what's going on. We were on top of everything from his health to like financial things like that. And thinking back on it, it would have been so nice if I didn't have to. But of course you do that because that's your family. But thinking back, I'm like, oh my God, like I was stressed. I was stressed, you know, with the doctors. They thinking my dad's going to die. Him being in a coma. I took off a month from work with FMLA to be there, trying to support my mom. So, you know, so we wouldn't both have to be there from like 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. at night. It was a lot going on. And it would have been nice if like someone was there to like help guide me or lead me, tell me what to do. How could I do this? How can I do that? And feel emotionally intact. So I think it's a lot of different things I think have happened in my life where I felt like I had to be a leader. I didn't have a choice. Especially some years ago with my dad. And then, I was dealing with someone who was open to vanilla with me, but they were more used to BDSM. They kind of opened my eyes to it. They were not a good fit for me. We weren't a good fit for each other. And then in meeting Sir, I found a partner that actually is knowledgeable about BDSM and that we mesh, and that just a lot of different things where I finally felt like, you know what, like, okay, I get it. And I always felt like in relationships, kind of like to Nereza's point of feeling like I always had somebody that needed help financially, or they were a liar, or like I always felt like I was like in the lead. And it was so funny. I remember I told Sir that, and he was like, well, actually, it sounds like you're being submissive. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? I felt like I was leading. I felt like I was the alpha in the relationship. And he was like, no, you were doing everything for them. So yeah, you thought you were in the lead, but really it was them, and like you were serving them, thinking that like you were in charge. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. It's really diabolical. But it's true.
All right, Lord.
Surprise.
Diabolical. But it was true. So I do feel like in every other aspect of my life, well, I would say every single one, but I feel like I am a leader in a lot of aspects of my life. Even growing up, like if we had a group project, I probably was in charge of the group project. So stuff like that. At work, especially when I worked in sales, I was like a mentor to people because I was kicking booty in sales. And I also do like to help people. I really enjoyed working like in retail because I enjoyed helping people. I enjoyed like being at the cash register and talking to people and, having them have a good day and leaving the store with like a positive experience. So, long way to say, yeah, I feel like I was thrust into that leadership position. I still enjoy aspects of being a leader, just not inside of my relationship.
Fair and heard. It's like the discovery of liking one or the other. How do y'all show up for your chosen journey? Like, how do you show up ready to follow, or how do you show up ready to lead? Because there's been this epiphany, like, oh my goodness, I think this is the energy I want to be in. Okay, now what? Like, what do you do to be ready to follow or lead?
I think for me it was more of a natural process. Like I wasn't like, I think answering your question is more so in hindsight. I wasn't like sitting there one day like, oh man, I really want to be a leader. It didn't happen like that. It was more so realizing that something was out of order or out of alignment and taking the initiative to address it, and then studying the discrepancies. I think every master or dominant should be a master themselves first and practicing discipline within themselves first. Otherwise, you got a blind leading the blind situation. So learning how to assess people. Like I love studying somebody's subconscious and watching how somebody looks or how their tone changes when they say something or their behaviors when they speak, and then drawing associations and patterns and then manipulating that association and pattern with some form of behavioral change or modification. So it's really a scholarly endeavor. I hate to say that, but for me, it's a very scholarly endeavor. And it's never just a simple, let me lead this. Like, for example, if you realize something is wrong at work, or I won't say wrong, but let's just say you're not reaching your goal at work, or you want to be able to be more efficient at your job with doing something, you first assess it or analyze it, and you realize, okay, part of my issue is time management. I want to be a better suitor of my time. So then you may study Franklin Covey, 5 Exceptional Choices to Productivity. You start to research that so that you can now become skilled. And in skill is mastery. And in mastery, there's leadership. That's how I feel about it. So I don't think it was like I was sitting there and like, ooh, let me study how to be a leader, or I don't even think I studied how to be a dom. I can be very honest and say I didn't read a book like the 6 rules to BDSM or the 6 rules to being a dom. I just had a sense of curiosity and openness, and reflection and studying. And when you're doing this with a human being, it's almost similar. Like, for example, Nereza is neurodivergent, and she's my twin flame. So we mirror each other in a lot of ways, but also are polar opposites in some of the same degree. So I wasn't like, ooh, I want to be an excellent leader here. Let me, but it's more so you assess. All right, so this is something that we need to make an allotment for in the relationship. So what does neurodivergency look like in BDSM? What does it look like in the ways that I expect to be served? And studying that, and then generating lessons, experiences, and exercises to shape or redefine a mold that fits into the relationship. So it's a very intentional and direct act, but what to do is very second nature, if that makes sense. Like, I didn't go get a book and I didn't Google it necessarily. I first wanted to learn, okay, what does this look like? What is neurodivergency? Because to be honest, I think everybody is a little neurodivergent. And I think social isolation, I would love to do a research study on that. I actually think social isolation plays a little bit of a factor into that, because I've never been an outgoing person, but from the research I've done on neurodivergency, it's not always genetic. It's very much environment and experience based as well. So, the more I bet there's a lot more neurodivergent people since COVID. And I believe that because there was a lot of social isolation. So people sitting in the house, not interacting with human beings as much as we used to in person to learn about those mannerisms, kind of like kids. You don't isolate your children and you make them go outside and play, not because you hate them or want to get rid of them, but it's important for them to study other people's actions and behaviors. And so for me, it's a very, you notice something is out of alignment or something can be improved, some efficiency or whatever it may be, something's not reaching the mark, and then or maybe it is reaching the mark and you want to excel even higher or express more or explore more and dive deeper into whatever that idiosyncrasy is or that element that has sparked your curiosity, and then you research, and then you practice, and then it becomes a trial and error, and then you learn. Like leaders at work, you may try to go out and give a speech and tell people why they should follow you and tell them all the things that you've done, and then leadership has to change depending on your audience and who you're dealing with as well. So you may read a great book that says you should be very stern in your request and you show no sign of weakness, and then you get out there and you deliver this decree to this audience and they're like, who the fuck this nigga think he is, so I think it's really important to just read a room, for lack of better words, first. Study yourself and study the audience that you're interacting with, and then you pivot according to that. That's how I approach it more so. But it's all very like clockwork. It's not, I don't have a blueprint, if that makes sense. One that I've written out, it's etched in my mind, in my subconscious, in my cerebellum, my frontal lobe. Frontal lobe.
It's when you said there's not a blueprint, it called to mind a conversation that we had years ago, sir, about how, especially being a part of a BDSM household that is poly, not every member of the family needs the same kind of thing. So being a master of what's yours, your property, your slave and submissive and the like, is definitely an academic undertaking the way you approach it. And that might not be everybody's approach. I know. I know for me, I had been familiar with the BDSM lifestyle before I fully jumped into my submissive journey, but I was on the other end. Like when I first met Sir, I was like, okay, so we equals. What's up? I too like smacking booty. Like I came at it from a very sexually focused aspect, not realizing the breadth of BDSM. So when I realized, okay, all of these situations that I've gone through where I've been told I was naive for the way that I cared about people. I gave too much. I wasn't playing the game that goes with relationships, dating. I didn't understand that. So my reaction to it was to shut it all down. Be like, okay, nobody gets any softness. And that wasn't me either. So deciding to be ready to serve and then showing up to serve was, okay, I feel my fight or flight coming in because some of these patterns look like situations I've been hurt in. But I'm going to take a leap of faith in this individual that has the energy of like a gravitational pull, and we're going to jump both feet in. Like that's how I had to approach it. Am I scared? Absolutely. Do I know where we're going? Absolutely not. Is this familiar or comfortable? No. But walking away from it seems wrong. And like I'm always going to question. And I'm always going to wonder, was this my opportunity to unlock all of these things I had to shove inside of me from before to fully embrace the naive love, the overbearing love, like, well, not overbearing, but you know, some people would say it would be a lot because it could be obsessive, you know what I mean? So just being able to take that leap of faith to show up in service when it felt safer to be in leadership. So that was one of the things that I initially had to switch off to be ready to follow because it was scared. It was scary to follow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Ooh, I hear him and hawing.
I was trying to remember. I was trying to remember the. I know what the question is, but I was trying to remember the phrasing of the question. I try to do that before.
How do you show up to follow?
Okay. How I show up to follow is I just show up as me.
Mm-hmm.
Or like open instead of trying to be like perfect. To listen instead of like defend. What changed the way I showed up was like I had to start looking at why the things I was learning or wanted to do wasn't working. Because I'd often find myself putting it like, not necessarily putting my foot in my mouth, but like I just learned the A, B, and C. I read this. I know I need to do this. So why is the result not changing? Like, why am I still finding myself here? And I had to take a step back and look at why this wasn't coming naturally with Sir, especially when he was offering the kind of like leadership or relationship support that I desire. Like, this is what I want. I like that. I want this. I know it. This is what I've been looking for. This is what I crave for. Like, but why do I know this, and why is this not happening? And the truth was I was so used to following people by becoming who I thought they wanted me to be. Or like I was never afraid of like losing myself because I've always been willing to give myself on purpose. Like, here, just take it, have it. But I was doing it because I was like, if I could just become this version of me that made them happy, then I would feel safe, I'd feel wanted, and then it'd be great. But Sir was like, no, like I want you. He was somebody who wanted me for me. I just had to learn to love that person he saw or knew I could be, and be comfortable being that person. Not who he wanted, not who's perfect, which kind of ties what you're saying is like everybody brings something different to it. I don't have to be like this person. That person is that person. They're good at that. Realize I want you because you are who you are, and this is what you're good at. And like, he didn't want polished version of myself or a performance, and that's often what I was used to doing. And to be able to show up unfiltered, still learning, not having a clue sometimes, that has been incredibly hard. Because I started to learn that I had barriers like overthinking and defensiveness, like talking in circles, over explaining, like all things that got in the way of how I wanted to follow clearly. And I would get stuck in needing to explain or prove myself because I didn't want him to find me incapable. And realizing that he already knew I didn't know how what I was doing. Like he already knew I didn't know how to drive. But he still let me get in the car because how was I going to learn? So now I show up. That's what led me to show up. Not trying to be perfect, but listening. And even when it's hard or like I feel old habits kick in or insecurities, I have to remind myself that this isn't about being good enough to be led. I just have to be vulnerable and willing enough to follow, and I know that I can. And that's also like at the end of the day, that's what he deserves, and that's what I'm going to give. And so I've had to just, and it's funny is that what's not funny and coming to that realization, I've talked a bit like just in the last few months, there's conversations that I've had about feelings or things that I thought that I shouldn't and I know that I wouldn't, and just knowing that and changing that in my responses, night and day difference. And like I almost got to a point where I was almost getting excited that I like I thought about something I shouldn't, like, oh, I felt like this, I knew it wasn't. And I was able to be excited about that it happened because I came to a realization and time reflect, and the end result was different. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's it. This is the one. This is why he wants me to do it like this. And so now I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to show up like this the next time. I'm going to show up like this the next time. And it still don't feel good. And it's not easy. It's not easy. But there's just something that is just showing up like that has made such a dramatic difference to where I can like, all right, I know that if something was to happen, as long as I remain team focused and stay on this course, it's not something that I'm not going to be able to get through.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And when you said perfection, it made me smile from our own personal journey as well, because I think that's part of the trust aspect in following and being followed, is that it's not going to be easy. There's going to be days where you're like, gosh darn, it was so much more simpler when I didn't have to think about how I really felt, or I didn't have to pay attention to my mood or my frame of mind, or making sure my tongue stays in play, all the little intricacies and changes that come with going on a journey like this. And being able to trust the person leading, even when you can't see where you're going, and being able to trust the person following, knowing they're not going to try to pull you backward or trip you up while you're in the process of leading. So that trust to be you and show up fully on either end of the spectrum definitely plays a large part into how I understand and decide to follow that someone is worthy to be followed. And for those of you that are leaders, correct me if I'm wrong, but that same trust to, again, not be snatched off balance or not have to be checking over your shoulder to make sure that you're covered in the back, right? Friends?
I agree with the statement, but what was the antecedent? What was that statement related to?
Following up on that idea of perfection, following up on the idea of trying to show up perfect when really you have to show up trusting, because we're humans. We're going to have issues, but being able to follow and trust even when you're not perfect, and being able to lead and trust who's following you even when you're not perfect. That was the correlation of the thoughts for me. And then
I think trust is a key factor. I think I never really worried about being snatched off kilter, probably because I have a very high sense of awareness, but as a leader, there's a false belief that you can never struggle. And that has been my greatest adversary, regardless of what element of life, not just even in relationships, is being okay with saying I'm having a hard time or I'm struggling with something. That is very difficult to me, but a vulnerable leader is a very powerful one, because that sense of vulnerability, it actually helps build trust and connection. And just realizing that you don't have to be seen as a god and incapable of error and mistake, because I think there's a false sense to being a leader or being a dom or mastering these things when you know all the answers and you'll never make a mistake. That's not true. So accepting that has probably been my greatest adversary. I'm not trying to brag or nothing, but I usually have a good study and situational awareness of the bitches in front of me, so I'm not worried about being pulled off kilter per se. I think I'm personally my greatest adversary when it comes to leadership.
Well, I would agree. That's one of the things that I struggle with. Um, I really don't find a struggle against other people except for myself. And I don't know if it's just all people that gone through leadership or feel like a leader, but I trust my partner more than I trust myself, or trust others around me more than myself. And I saw that like a few years ago, and I was very selfless. I never considered myself, like, never considered my emotions, never considered the way I think. And I've been working on that. I guess I don't know if this sounds bad, but I've been trying to be more selfish or more concentrate on myself.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Where to the point where I gave up myself for other people's, which is a good thing, but I destroyed myself in the process, and I fell into a deep depression because of it. And I put all the fault on myself, and I just changed perspective. Like, what if I saw my friend doing that? It's like, of course, the first thought, like, to you is gonna be like, hey, work on yourself, and I really took that into consideration. I pushed all the people that I didn't. They were toxic in my life. I made my circle way smaller, so I can have more time to myself. Because, like Joker said, the biggest adversary is yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Period.
Period.
He said period, so I was agreeing with his period.
Oh, I said bird. I said bird because Joker said I see the bitches in front of me. I was like, bird. Yeah, he's like, I'm one of them.
I'm sick of you. I'm sick of you. Too good.
That B word is a special title for us.
It is.
Bird.
Amen.
I was so excited. I was like, I reached the level.
I know.
I've just been about this land.
Exactly.
Well,
I mean, I have been through a major journey. So,
and there's more to come. Sunshine.
exactly. But, exactly. So much more to come. But it's like, Sarah's opened my eyes up to so many things, and what we have is this amazing friendship. But I know that if I have questions, I can ask, or because he is that great of a leader, he will just lead me. Like when my second life mom passed away, I was so busy making sure my sister was okay because she was tasked with having to make sure everybody was informed, like the close family, and then plan something for the in-world's funeral. I had forgotten to eat. I wasn't drinking water, and Sarah was just like, I need you to go now. Go get some rest, drink, eat. It wasn't a question question. I had to go do it, and I needed that guidance and structure because I had completely lost myself. So those are things that just further cements this is what I am. I know I'm on the right journey, you know? So,
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And I do know sunshine. And I can't help but smile. Like just that level of connection, um, awareness, and openness on both ends to step in and be ready to assist and to be open enough to receive, especially in moments of tragedy like that too.
I think there's a great like reciprocity because I think that's the equally yoked part of like friendship. Like Sunshine says, we're friends, even though we be trolling y'all sometimes. And like Father's Day was really heavy for me. And she knows I've been working on like my ancestor reference. And I got to take a picture of this bottle of wine and just show it to y'all. It is so pretty. And my dad also liked to drink. So that little gift, I say little not because, you know, it literally is little, but people don't think about how small acts, quote unquote, may not be small to the other person. It's all about perception. Or sometimes the chat will be really loud and she can sense that somebody has irritated me and she'll message me and be like, take a deep breath. And I'll be like, how do you know this shit? Because I'm so annoyed. So I
yeah.
think it's I do enjoy that, like when you get a really, like I said, friends, it doesn't have to always be like a lover or a partner, but even I like the fact that Sunshine mentioned, I just want to highlight that like you can, and if whether you realize it or not, sometimes like to Sombi's point, you'll end up giving people leadership over your life and not even really realizing it, and they don't mean you any positive, or they're not rooting for you in the direction you'd like to go, even though it may seem like it or feel like it. Like when your friend be like, girl, fuck him, go ahead and cheat, shit like that. She's taking leadership over your actions and honestly finna get ready to break up your relationship. So having like this sense of awareness of what doctrines and decrees that we adopt and people that we allow in our space, to Somebody's point, I think is really important in leadership, and whether you're being led or whether you're leading other people. Because I like deep connections. I don't really do well with like superficial ones. I tend to not maintain that long. So like I was having like not the best day. Excuse me, I'm getting a little teary eyed because I started thinking about my dad, because he was like that. I wasn't having the best day. And when Sunshine sent that, just looking at the bottle, it was pretty. It has like all this ancestor carving on it. I don't even know how this bitch found this, but it just it prevented probably the next 2 or 3 crying spills. So it's really when you have somebody, whether you're being served or someone serving, and with any relationship capacity, I think that's like a sacred gift, because true service and being served or being a leader or being a master or being a dom, it's all about intentionality. It's all about connection and being in tuned. To me, that's where true relationship depth thrives. And I only want connections like that. I mean, I don't mind, like, of course, you know, you can't be that deeply connected with 50 people because that's draining. So I do appreciate the connections where it's not so deep, but I'm personally want to work on spending more time. I was talking to Ray December about this, which I said I'm gonna watch this curiosity thing with Sunshine. I want to spend making sure that my time is really given to the people that I connect with in that deep way, giving them more of that time versus spending so much time with the other elements of life.
Beautifully stated.
Makes them tell you, I study people dying, and the number one regret from people dying is that they didn't do what they wanted to do in their life. That's the number one regret of people that are like elderly and getting ready to die. Number one regret, not doing what they wanted to do in life and living their life for other people. And I think that it comes great fulfillment, because if I die the way I want to die, I want to be like, barely know I'm in the world. And I want to be like maybe almost 100, if not a little bit over 100. That'd be perfect for me. And I want to just, as I'm like taking my last breath, I want to be able to have enough sense of awareness. So even though like, I want to be like on drugs as an elder, you know, like I'm dying, I know I'm dying, I'm this. I can barely control my bowels, but I can think about the time that we were on the beach, or the time that I got the wine, or the time that somebody sang a silly song. I would be in such zen with just my memories. Yeah, that made me happy.
That would make me happy. I remember that time I tripped over the stool and just all the good time. But on that note, I don't think there's a better way to end it. When we think about following or leading, there's a dedication of time, there's a dedication of intention, and showing up to the fullest extent, meaning showing up as your fullest self and your truest self. And those that are...
You say truest?
I did. I was going to try to roll past it.
I was like Jewish.
I said truest? Jewish?
Yep. Your true
Truest.
self. Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yes. Thank you, sir. And I lost my train of thought.
Everybody go out there and be their truest.
Yep. You chew this and you chew that.
I heard Jewish.
Yeah.
I heard Jewish.
Yeah. That sent me.
Yes. True. Yes.
Truest. All right.
So, being able to show up as your truest self and making sure that those connections, whether you're leading or following, fill your cup, are equally yoked, provide something that brings fulfillment to you in a way where you can fully enjoy it. So with that, we're going to go ahead and close out today's conversation. Thank you so much for being here. And that's it, folks. We did it. Yay.